Hey, are values important? Life values. How do you find them? They're unconscious. Surely that's so difficult. No, says Cluffy. It's a simple thing to do, and once you get them and you notice if there's a clash or whatever, you can change your life and make things absolutely wonderful. And if making your life wonderful is something that's important to you, because I know it is, have a listen after this. Hey, welcome to the Personal Development Unplugged podcast. So pleased you're here. Your time is valuable and precious. So what I would like to do is fill that time that you share with me with the most shiny golden nuggets to help improve your life, to get your goals, your wishes, your dreams to come to fruition quicker, bigger, better than you could ever imagine, using your imagination, using hypnosis, using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, all of that, using all things of the mind. No brain hacks, but real solid processes to deconstruct what people do to become great. And then find the processes that we can install that in ourselves to support you in your dreams and get what you really want in life. Anyway, who am I? I'm Paul Clough, and just going to have conversations with you in this podcast and get you thinking, but also share those processes because we're going to have so much fun. That's it. We're going to have fun for a change because we can sit down for a spell and have more fun than we can stand, creating the world we want to live in and be the person we want to be in that world. The only limitation is your imagination. And you got bucket loads, by the way, bucket loads. Have a listen. You really must.
This is Personal Development Unplugged with Paul Clough.
In simplicity, there is genius.
In simplicity, there is genius.
Hey friend, how are you doing today? I do value your company because value is what we're going to talk about. Values, they seem quite mysterious, don't they? What are my values of life, my life values? And the thing about values are, they're generally at the unconscious level. Yes, you can be aware of them consciously. You can think you know them consciously, but you act with in accordance with your values and your beliefs. And they're so intertwined because what you believe is important is a value, and beliefs, especially around yourself, your identity, they're the most important beliefs, or the most powerful and profound beliefs that you have. So, are values important? Well, let me think. Let me think. There's a story, and it's a true story, because I learned values in my master prac in NLP. And I was blown away by them. I really was. And in that NLP training, we went through the process of understanding our values in accordance with maybe our just general life, but you could have them, and we'll go through the different contexts that you have. You see, I thought they were brilliant. And I was at that particular time, in the building industry. I was a manager, joint, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, we had loads of managers on our building sites. And they knew I was a little bit weird in the way that I did hypnosis. And I sometimes asked them questions which got them to think a little bit deeply about things. Or when we had problems, to look at problems in a different way. And so they knew that. And I went round every manager and asked them, would it be okay to find your values? And they go, what the you're talking about, Cluffy? You see, I know what's important to me about this job, and it's all about my money. Okay. It's all about finance, all about money. And then when we elicited their values and then put them into, call them a hierarchy, what's the most important, then the next and the next and the next, we found money wasn't quite that important. Obviously, it's important to have enough money, but once that's satisfied, there are other things that's even more important. And that meant that I could help each manager be placed in a particular job that would actually address his values. They'd be in sync with their values, so they were happier in their work. But I'm going to rewind even before that, before I even took that position or joined with my partner Mike. He asked me, would I come and work with him? So I said, yeah, I would. But two things. First of all, I have to get on with your wife because we're working. She's part of your company. And if we don't get on together, that ain't going to work. But we got on famously, so that was fine. She was beautiful. She was a lovely person. We just got on well. But also I said, I want to know what your values are. He said, what are you talking about? I said, just bear with me. I need to know these things because I've done my own values and I know what my top 2 values are. I didn't tell him they were truth and honesty. They were my top 2, and there was trust after that and things like that. But truth and honesty. So I asked him, well, the thing I'm going to explain to you shortly. And I listed his values. And then we found his hierarchy, put them in order. And then we found his top 2. And guess what? They weren't the same as me. They were just in a different position. Instead of truth and honesty, he had honesty and truth. And I just said, that's it then. I'm joining you. We'll work together. And do you know what? We worked for nigh on 15 years. And in that partnership, we never had a written agreement. And in that partnership of 15 years, we had one disagreement. And it lasted for about 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, we looked at each other and said, I don't like this. Do you? And, no, let's stop. Let's just carry on doing what we like to do. And we just got on. And I trusted him implicitly. And he trusted me because it was his company, but he would put that company in my hands sometimes because he trusted me. And he knew I'd tell him the truth of whatever's happening. And that's what happened. We just were so successful because we just trusted each other and knew that we would always be honest with each other. So that's why they're important. And the thing is, they were my values for, say, my life in general, my personal values. They were his personal values. But do you have to do them in general, your life general? You can do. It's always nice to do. But there's also different contexts. For those of us, you, that have a career, you'll have values in that career. Maybe it's not a career that you love, and maybe that's where you find there's a clash in your values because it's not stimulating or supporting or just refreshing those values. But there's also relationships. Now, they could be relationships with your colleagues at work. They could be your real love of your life relationships or just with your social friends. Because we're going to have a different set of values for each one of those contexts. Now, it could be just, as you say, like Mike and I. Or it could be a lot of people look at their spiritual values or their values towards health. So you can imagine any context of your life, you will have a set of values. And I'm going to do a big generalization. They're probably not the same in each. And I know they're not, but you have to say probably. Because each context has a different set of values. And this is where sometimes we get a clash of values. Because you might have someone who is so family orientated. When he thinks about his family and the people in his life, the love of his family are number one. Or her family. His, her, there. Now, that person could also want to provide for his family. And work is so important, and what work gives them, and also the financial reward for that. So that person goes out and works 7 days a week, maybe 8 days a week, maybe 26 hours a day. Slight exaggeration there, Cluffy, but you get what I mean. And they're working so bloody hard for their family, yet they're spending no time with their family. And can you see how the two values are at complete loggerheads with each other? And that's why sometimes relationships break down or people go into not overdrive. They go overdrive first, but then they get burnt out and everything falls apart that way because your unconscious mind tries to pull them back and things like that. It's so deep sometimes. But they're just this basic clash in values between one context in your life and the other and another other. It can just cause problems. But when they're in harmony, because sometimes, if you take that same example, there will be times when people need to work that little bit extra so they can fully support their family. But also they can take time and spend it with their family and push work aside because they're in harmony. Not balance, because balance is, as you know, don't like it, pretty boring. Because in harmony, sometimes something comes to the front, something will slip behind and support it. And that's what we want in life. But we need to understand our values first to find out why the hell sometimes things are going wrong, but also why things are going right. Because if you can understand how things are going right, you can make sure you keep it that way. So understanding your values, I think, is really important. And it also helps you to make decisions, or why you're having trouble making decisions, because you're making a decision in one context and it doesn't quite feel right. And that's maybe because there's a slight, you're clashing with another value and you don't know why. But if you know your values, then you can make a decision that keeps that harmony going. You maybe look at in the past of the decisions you have made that caused that type of, that clash. And when you understand your values, you go, I can see what was happening there now. I understand. I can learn from that, because that's the whole point about this. This personal development stuff. It's, doing great things to enhance ourselves right now, to be the best version of ourselves. So we're creating a better future, which comes into the now, but also learning from the past. Because if we don't learn from the past, we're just going to make the same shitty mistakes over and over again. And why would you want to do that? So we learn from the past, we understand, and we make so much better decisions. So here's the thing. Values are so complicated. Values are so deep. As I said, they are one of the most powerful things connected with your identity beliefs or beliefs around your identity. They're so difficult to do. And do you know what? That's a load of bollocks. Because things, and this is my meta note of all of this, things do not have to be complicated. People can make things complicated. They can make it so complicated they look to be the business. They look in themselves to have total control over everything because I know more than you. And that's balls. So I'm going to teach you, I'm going to share with you. I don't teach. I'm going to share with you the most simplest way. Because what's simplicity? It's genius. Not too simple where it becomes ineffective, but not complicated where it gets just totally bloody confusion or confusing. So what do you have to do? Before you start, we have to get some stationery together. Really clever? Yeah, you got to write them down. You will have to write things down. So what you do, you either get a piece of paper and you tear that piece of paper into, say, 1.5 squares. What's that? 40 mil, 50 mil squares, 2-inch squares. They're just nice little squares, the size of a Post-it pad, a sticky note pad, okay? And you get round about, between 6 and 10 of them. Have 10, you can always throw a few away, okay? Or use them on another thing. And what you write on one piece of paper by itself, you think of your context. So let's say it was my career. And you go, what's really important to me in my career or about my career? And you write that on a piece of paper because you're going to repeat that. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. What you're going to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to say to yourself, okay, thinking about my career, what is really important to me about my career and in my career? What's important to me? And you could say, okay, well, it's money. Let's have money. And you get one of those little squares or one of those sticky notes. Sticky notes are great because you can just stick them down and unstick them. I think that was the greatest thing because I think, just as an aside, those sticky notes were a failure because someone tried to invent really good glue and they found out they could only make tacky glue. And then someone had the idea to make it into a sticky note and made gazillion. So there you go. That's an aside. So we get one of those and we write down the first thing that comes into our head, which was, we'll say, it's money, finance, or whatever it is. And you just put it down. You don't need to look at it anymore for the moment. And then you go, okay, what else? What else is important to me? And first thing that comes to your mind, don't think about it. The whole point of this is not thinking what would be a good value to have, because that's your conscious mind. We want, as I said right at the very beginning, these values are unconscious. So it's the first thing comes into your head about that answer. So what's important to me about my career? It's connection with people, maybe. You write that down, connection with people. Okay, put that down. What else is important to me about my career? Well, it's important that I'm close to home. Put that down. What else is important to me? And you repeat and repeat and repeat without thinking. And I really have to stress this, without thinking. A lot of the work I do is without thinking because I'm not that intelligent enough to think really good thoughts. But the thing is, when you don't think and you let the answers just come straight into your mouth, you're getting what's really there inside. And when you get to about the fourth one, because the first 3 or 4, you're going to know. As they come out, you're going to, oh yeah, that's of course that's right. But then you're going to start stretching yourself. And you're going to go, what else is important to me? And it could well be like me, trust or honesty. You go, oh, that's a weird one. That's got nothing to do. Yes, it has got something to do with this context. And you put it down because it came out. And then you go, what else? And you go, really, Cluffy, keep saying what else. And you keep saying what else until you start to get like a loop going. But it's got to be at least 6 to 8 before that loop comes. Because if there isn't, you're thinking too much. But when the loop comes in, oh, that's very similar to the top one, that's similar, that'll do. Okay? That's all you need to do. Now what you do is you've got all those pieces of paper, all those sticky notes, and you just put them on a table or the floor. Something flat, basically. And you have another piece of paper, Cluffy? Yeah, because I want you to write them down. Unless they're sticky notes, or you could just put a number on the other note, so you put them into, you don't have to write them down. What you do is you look at all of those what's important to me notes, and you go, do you know what? This is my career. That's the example we're using still. In my career, if I could only have one of those, of all of them, what would be the one thing that would have to have above all the rest? And you can think about it a little bit there, but there'll be one that jumps out of you, intuitively pulls you towards it, and you go, yeah, that's the one. I really want you to go intuitively. Because again, I don't want logical thinking. You'll see when you check it, the logical thinking doesn't work. So you go, actually, when I look at all of this, this is the one that I just feel it's important to me. I know it's important to me. And you write a number 1 on it. And you put it over there, out the way. So you're not looking at that one now. And then you say, okay, well, I've now got these other 8 or 7 left. Now, out of those, if I could only have one of those, just one of those, what would be the most important out of those which are left about my career? And another one would go, well, actually, that one seems the most important out of this, what's left. So you write number 2 on that. You're going to get the drift now, aren't you? Put it over to the side. You've got the remainder. You look at that remainder and you go, yes, you know what's going to happen. If I could only have one out of that list, what would be the most important to me? And you go through the whole list. I'm not going to keep repeating the same thing because you get it. You get it. It's so simple. And all you do is write down 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you have the hierarchy. And you can write them down, or I love the sticky notes because you can stick one above the other, on the other, and the other, and you've got them there. And you can see what's the most important to you. And you can also see that the top one has to have all the ones below. This is the type of check. Does that top one include all the ones below? Because if it doesn't, maybe we've got to rethink it or redo it. But also looking from the bottom up, does the bottom one support the one above that? And does the bottom one, or the one above that, support the one above that? So it's like a ladder that supports the top one. So everything from the top down is inclusive, and everything from the bottom up is supporting the top. And then you go, yeah. Now you can start to notice how maybe in a past job, which you didn't like, look at your values and notice which of those values was not being met. And then you can understand that's why that job didn't work. Got it. And if you're looking for a new career, or you've got in your career now, you go, well, actually, some of these aren't quite being met enough. I've got to work harder at getting these values met. Because when I do you know what? That job is just going to flow. That career is just going to get better and better. And you're going to enjoy it more. I'll give you a quick example. This is a Tony Robbins example of when you get values that clash. Tony Robbins with his first wife. They were having an argument. And Tony Robbins started to raise his voice. In fact, I think he raised his voice quite a lot. And he's got a big voice anyway. So if you can imagine a big voice with a big man coming out of that, there's a big, big voice. And his wife looked at him, walked out, and closed the door. And he started shouting after her. Ah, you can't do that. And when it calmed down, he said to her, what happened? I was expressing myself and you walked out. And he said, in my family, we have to stay and express ourselves. We cannot leave the room. We have to express ourselves in all our volume and with all our emotion. And his wife said, okay, but in my family, when people get so emotional, we believe it's the right thing to do to leave and then come back. So can you see two really strong values? And when they do clash, boom. But now, or then, they both understood. So if Tony got a bit emotional, his wife would decide to leave and go, whoa, Tony, I'm listening to you. I don't want to leave yet. Just bring the emotion down. And if Tony Robbins was there, I understand now. I don't want you to leave. I'm just going to bring that tone down. But you just know it's emotional. And between the two of them, they worked it out. But you can imagine if they didn't work it out, what would happen over time? And if you think about that example, their beliefs as well. They believe in, that the belief of honesty is being emotional. The belief of being honest and trustworthy is maybe just leaving until that person's calmed down, to give them space. So you can see how the beliefs and values are so entwined, so close. And they are your identity. They're who you really are. Can you change values? You bet you bloody can. Because if there's a clash, you have to. And sometimes when there's a clash of values or the values aren't quite in the right, when we feel really supporting us, it just means we've got a little bit of work to do. Maybe something in the past has created a belief that just doesn't gel with the other values. And if you work on that limiting belief that's trying to do something for you, then you get the learnings and then you look at your values again. And the funny thing is, when you elicit your values again, when you've gone through maybe some of those things that aren't quite right, you find you have a different set of values. They're the same, or they're similar, but not quite the same. But when you look at them, when you've done a rejig, they're all unconscious. You can't just put one above the other because you think it'd be better. That doesn't work. Just a sticky note. That doesn't care. But when you look at them again, sometimes you go, that's me. Now that really is me. And it follows. And guess what? How complicated was that? Yeah, bloody wasn't, was it? Because it's simple. Okay, dealing with those clashes may be a little bit more difficult. And I'm sure in another episode, if you want, I probably will do it anyway, but I'd love some feedback to say, Paul, okay, I've done this and this is what I'm understanding, but maybe can you explain this? And we'll do another episode around different parts, but they can be tailored to the things that you would like to find out. So I'm sure there'll be another one to deal with things like the clashes and how you change values if they're not supporting you. So we can do that because that's what it's there. That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here to support you. And in me doing this, it just helps me grow stronger as well to understand what I know. Things I've forgotten about values for some time. Then it came to me and I thought, I just want to do this. Because I just remembered how much I valued values. I believe it's a belief that values are so important. Because when they're at odds with each other, they do fuck you up a little bit. Sorry about the swearing, but I just felt like swearing this today. But when they're in harmony, life just flows and things just get better and better. And how did I want you to feel? I wrote the thing. I have this little note. How do I want you to feel when I'm talking about you? You know what I want you to feel? My notes was going, is that what it is? And that was all I want you to feel. Curiosity. Please, if this does resonate with you, please do the job. Do that process. Doesn't take long. Don't think about it. Just do it. Don't think about when you're asking that question, what's important to me? Just write down what comes to mind first thing. Do not, what's the word? Don't criticize. Don't edit. Unedited. They just come out. 1, 2, 3. And when you then put them in the hierarchy, if I could only have one, again, not edited. Don't think about it. Just go for the ones that come out, that jump out at you, because they will. You go, that's the one. You'll know it. There'll be an understanding between you, consciously and unconsciously. You'll know the one. And when you do that, you've got a real sense of what your values are. I hope that was so simple. But I hope you don't think it's so simple that it's not powerful. Because for me, the most powerful processes that we have in hypnosis and NLP are the most simplest ones. And they just get to the heart of it. You imagine, like the example of Tony Robbins and his wife, if you and your partner have a clash in values, what's going to happen over time? But if you can understand someone's values, even if you don't agree with them entirely, they're their values, they're not yours. But at least you can acknowledge them, you can work around them, you can help them. Not help them change, because you don't change anybody. But you can just understand. It's all about learning and then making decisions around that learning. You know, sometimes you'll look at a relationship and say these values are just never, ever going to gel. So maybe it's time to find somebody else. It's life. That's what happens. Or maybe you suddenly make your relationship even better than it was. Just a little bit better. This or something better. Maybe it makes your career that much more better. Maybe you get to understand yourself about your spirituality that much more better. Your health that much more better. You know, why am I not going to the gym when I want to go to the gym? Oh, there's maybe a clash of values there. And maybe there's a different way. Or you change something. You learn something. As I said, I hope that makes sense. I hope that's resonated somewhere with someone. If not, I've just gone on and resonated with myself. But if it has, please share. Please share this with everyone you know, if you would, please. And remember, you can sign on to the hypnosis. It's paulcloughonline.com/podcast. I know a lot of you did the last week when I put that hypnosis track in. Please keep sharing. Please keep signing for that, because you'll get so much more value. And yeah, it's free. And free sometimes doesn't feel valuable, but usually have a listen to those buggers because they are good. Because they've been done with an intention and love for you. Okay? A bit soppy, Cluffy Gear. Don't go there, Cluffy. We can't be too soppy, can we? We can be kind. So, please share. Find out those free hypnosis and find those values. Find out what's really important about your self-development, about you. Maybe what's the values about finding your real you, singing from your true voice, all that stuff. Maybe looking in parts of your life that aren't quite working and then go, let's have a look at the values there then, see what's going on. And that's all that feedback. If you find something you need help with, send me that email. feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Now that's 3 calls to action. I know I should only give you 1, but they're all important. So, with that, my friend, sending you so much, it's time to fly. Oh, and have more fun than you can stand. Bye-bye.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.